everyone, welcome to Bald Guy Money. I am Bald Guy, and last week I came on here to tell you all that we were in for some volatility in the gold and silver markets, and I also said that on a technical basis, what we were seeing in the charts favored a short-term pullback. And that was really independent of a lot of things that were going on, including the US presidential election, because I've been in the game a long time now, and I've never seen anything go up in a straight line without having some breathers and taking some pullbacks. That's just usually how it works. Now, in that video, I also gave you the pullback levels you see on the screen now, and I repeated the message from a month ago in saying we are likely closer to the bottom for gold and silver today than we are to the top. And I stand by that statement 1 week later. And that's despite the fact that Donald Trump, who according to some analysts would be very bad for precious metals, won the US presidential election. Because I'm not on board with that line of thinking. And even though we saw the dollar jump on his election victory and metals immediately pull back, I think we learn more by looking at what they did in his first 4 years as President of the United States, rather than looking at what happened over the 3 days since he won the election. Because when we look at the data, you can't help but notice that in the first 3 years of Donald Trump's presidency, gold was up more than 30%, after which it took a huge jump as C-19 fears drove a lot of investors into gold all at once. And switching over to silver, although the numbers didn't really get interesting until the big C-19 jump in 2020, the price of silver was still up 12% after 3 years of his being president. And that tells me that what we saw from Wednesday to Friday this past week was not a loss in confidence in precious metals or the end of the gold and silver bull market, but more of a rotation of investors, I might even say short-term traders, taking some profits out of gold and silver, which have been performing fabulously, by the way, and moving some of that money into the riskier Trump-related trades like Bitcoin and Tesla. And for those of you saying, but Trump's presidency will result in a stronger dollar, and that means weaker gold prices and silver prices, to you, I say, if we've learned anything over the past 10 years, it's that gold can rise along with the US dollar, and that's exactly what you're looking at in this chart here. And what I'll add to that is something I said on Twitter this past week, and that is, even though Americans voted Biden, Harris, and the Democrats out of government, the nearly $36 trillion in debt stays. They don't take that with them when they get voted out. And that comes along with the roughly $1 trillion in annual interest payments the US is making on that debt, which brings a huge incentive for the Trump administration to pressure the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates in order to refinance some of that debt and alleviate some of the pressure that particular budget item being the interest on the debt is putting on the US federal government. So zooming out a bit, I have no reason to believe that another Donald Trump presidency will be bad for gold and silver, even if we get some de-escalation of geopolitical tensions such as the wars that are still going on in the Ukraine and Middle East. Because I think a very good case can be made to say that the current bull market, we are in for gold and silver, one that I said could last up to 2033, in fact, started before C-19, started before these current conflicts, and started during Donald Trump's first term as President of the United States. And that's why in this video, I want to show you all the 3 signs of a metals market top to show you all why I think gold and silver are going to have a great year in 2025. And this may also be help for people who are looking to sell the eventual top, maybe out to 2030, 2033. Once that's covered, I want to move on to another hard asset class I think is bottoming out right now and poised for a big run up in the coming years. And I'm going to finish the video off with a viewer question about Bitcoin versus gold. So be sure to watch this video to the very end. Now, just before we dive in, if you're in the United States and want to buy gold or silver at a great price, like these gold US Eagles, which are on the screen right now at the best prices I've seen, please be sure to check out www.summitmetals.com. All the products they sell are verified to be authentic and the service is first class. It costs nothing to check them out, and I think it's worth your time and worth giving them a shot at earning your business. Okay, so getting to the 3 signs that tell me we have not reached the top of the gold and silver market yet, and that 2025 should be a good year for both gold and silver. The first one is something I briefly touched on last week, and that is the gold to silver ratio. Because every time we've seen metals top out, this ratio has experienced a rapid drop, which brought it below 50, meaning that 1 ounce of gold was worth 50 or less ounces of silver. And the 2 best periods I can point to as an example of that will stick out in the minds of gold and silver stackers are the periods of 1980 and 2011, when we experienced metals tops, where the gold to silver ratio reached levels of 15 and 30 respectively. So with the gold to silver ratio well above 80 today, that tells me that market psychology and money flow triggers that I mentioned in my latest free article at summitmetals.com have not been triggered yet. And here is an excerpt from that article where I explain the step-by-step process I have observed in precious metals bull markets. But to put it simply, as big money moves into gold, it pushes retail and metal speculators increasingly towards silver. And the same thing happens in jewelry, by the way. And that's where I think we are today. But from my point of view, we have only seen the first wave of speculators and retail investors starting to enter precious metals, and that's why we only recently started seeing net inflows back into gold ETFs after a few years of outflows and investors selling their gold positions from the ETFs. And as this develops, I expect to see larger moves up in silver, pushing the gold to silver ratio down to anywhere between 40 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold to 60 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold on the high side, which is roughly where we were in February 2021 when silver started flirting with the $30 per ounce price level again for the first time since 2012. Now, the second thing that I am looking at that is telling me we are not close to the top for precious metals yet, and that 2025 can in fact be a great year for gold and silver, is the price of metals in relation to the major stock market indices, and I use the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Dow Jones to measure that. And what I have done here in this table you see on the screen now is I have measured the ratios of gold versus these indexes since 1987. And I am only showing the data from 2000 here to make it a little bit more digestible for you, the viewer. But using these numbers, I set a baseline to measure what the historic norms have been with respect to the price of gold versus the price of these stock indexes. And as far as gold is concerned, you can see that today we are in neutral territory. And with stocks as highly priced as they are, it tells me there is still a lot of money that can rotate out of stocks, as we've seen some money rotating out of metals and into stocks like Tesla and into Bitcoin. And what will happen is they will rotate out of stocks and into gold, bringing us to levels we saw from 2010 to 2013, marked in the red box there on the screen, which suggests that gold is still 2 to 3 times lower than it will be when it starts to top out. But where we really start to see this clearly is when we look at the numbers as they relate to silver, because as large as the opportunity to protect yourself with gold is right now, I think silver is showing us, despite it being above $30 an ounce right now, that it is still a fantastic metal to stack. Because in relation to the stock market, silver today is cheap. It is really cheap. In fact, it is about as cheap in relation to stocks today as it was in 2003, when it was only $4.88 per ounce. And if we compare silver to where it was versus stocks in the 2011 blow-off top, it suggests that silver at the top of the bull run could increase its value by nearly 5 times versus stocks, which would give it a price in today's dollars of $152 per ounce. And I say that number just to give you a little bit of perspective, as I think they will most likely meet somewhere in the middle, making my $60 per ounce of silver target by 2026 not only a conservative target, but at least from my point of view, a very, very realistic one. Now, there is still one major sign to show you that I am looking for when it comes to calling the top for the gold and silver bull market, and a signal that's also telling me that 2025 is still going to be a great year for gold and silver. But just before I reveal it, I want to jump to the second part of our agenda to mention what other hard asset class I have become bullish on because it ties in very well with the metal to stock indices ratio I've just shown you. And I'm not going to be cagey about it. The asset class I'm talking about is real estate, and I announced this to my Patreon members about 2 weeks ago. Now, this bit is sponsored, and some of you may recognize the sponsor because many of you used their services the first time I talked about them. And truth be told, I reached out to them this time and asked them if they wanted to work together on this video because I was planning to present why I think the time is right for people to add some land to their portfolio on top of their gold and silver holdings. So, to begin with, why I am turning bullish on land and real estate right now. Home prices have had a slight drawdown and stagnation in major Western economies since peaking in 2022. And that's what the data you're looking at on the screen here is telling us. Now, in the United States, despite many of us expecting a major US dollar drop in real estate prices, much of the correction has been masked by inflation. And with interest rates set to come down and the potential for inflation to reignite, wealthy people I know are starting to move into real estate and land right now. And just so you all know that I'm putting my money where my mouth is, I personally purchased a property this past week because I think we are nearing the bottom in real estate as far as fiat currency prices are concerned. And I'll even show you all an awful selfie of myself that I took in that property when I got the keys this past Tuesday. So why do I think we are nearing the bottom right now? Well, median home prices are reaching similar price levels to the post-financial crisis crash in the USA when priced in gold and silver. And these prices were even lower before the latest pullbacks in gold and silver. So as far as I see it, if we're not at the bottom now, my assumption is that we are at least very close. And again, with rates coming down and the new incoming president being a person who favors lower interest rates, we are entering an environment that favors higher prices for physical assets. And this is why I think this assumption makes perfect sense, and the arguments for owning some land right now are very strong. So if you agree with that and owning a piece of land in the United States sounds interesting to you, and you'd like to own your own piece of land for as low as $1,000, check out Land of Land, and I've put their website and telephone number up on the screen for you all, because buying land with them is as easy as buying a gold or silver coin from an online bullion dealer, with no need to leave your home or worry about verifying if the person selling the land to you actually owns it, because they sell all the land to you directly. Their website is easy to use, and they give you all the details you need to perform your research before buying, which includes property coordinates, zoning details, and taxes. And the best part is, if you find a deal that matches what you want, all you have to do is contact them, agree on the price, and you can pay with a bank wire or even a credit card, and they will have your deed back with you in roughly 1 to 4 weeks, depending on the county. And if you're really trying to get a deal, they auction off 50 lots every week in amazing locations, and here are a few examples from last week's auction. And by using promo code BALDGUY, that's Bald Guy, they will give you $300 off your invoice for any property you buy at auction. So if you want to buy some land now, hard ground that you can stand on, hunt on, lease out, something that the Federal Reserve cannot print, whatever you want to do on that land, if you want to add that as an additional way to protect your savings from inflation and build your hard asset portfolio, please check out landofland.com or call them at the number on the screen. Okay, so jumping back to the third sign that I'm looking at that's telling me that we are not at the top of the market for gold and silver, and that 2025 still has the potential to be a great year for both metals. And this is probably one of the strongest signals that I look at, because it shows the full momentum of the market behind precious metals, and that is a major run-up in mining stocks. And why I say this shows the full momentum of the market behind metals is because once retail investors start to participate in the metals bull market, we see investors confirming the move by piling into mining stocks. And what you see here is the GDX, which is the large miners ETF, which had a pronounced run up from 2009 to 2011 at the height of the last metals bull market. And looking at this objectively, when we compare metals prices today versus then when it was having that run up, you can see that gold is much higher than it was versus its average price in 2011, and silver is in the same neighborhood as its average price in 2011, while oil prices, which is a major input cost for miners, is much lower today versus the 2011 average closing price. And if we look at the recent positive performance in miners as a signal that we are at the 2009 phase of this bull market, even though I think we're still much earlier than that, I think we can easily see increases of 139% in price for silver from here, which is what it grew by from 2009 to 2011 based on the average closing prices of those years, and that would bring it up to $75.12 per ounce. And for gold, that increase over that same period of time on the average closing price was 61%, which from here would bring us still up to $4,321 per ounce. So as I see it today, there is really no reason for anyone to call the top in the current gold and silver bull market. Not only did they perform well during Trump's first presidency, as I've shown you at the beginning of the video, the most important signals indicating that metals have topped out have not triggered yet. And with lower interest rates around the world being pursued to blow some air back into the deflating global economy, I think we're in for a great 2025 for hard assets, and that includes gold, silver, land, real estate, and I also remain in my mining stock trades, which I opened in July of last year. And apologies to everybody for the headline here. It was impossible for me to find anything neutral on the topic of Trump and interest rates, but I wanted to show you all that Trump does in fact support lower interest rates to support what it is I'm saying here in this video. Now, with that covered, it is time to move on to this video's viewer question. And remember, you can leave your questions for me in the comments section of every video I do. I pick one question to be answered each week right here on the channel, and you never know, your question just might be the next one I answer. And this week's question comes from Stater Stacker. And he wants to know what I think about Bitcoin, do I support it or not, and what I think about other crypto coins. And he mentioned one here that claims to be the silver of crypto. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to be seen as supporting it. So I'm going to start by answering the second part of the question first, and that is what I think of these new cryptos that say they are like Bitcoin, going to replace Bitcoin, or are the digital silver to Bitcoin's digital gold? And I'll keep the answer short and sweet. Projects like that have been around almost as long as Bitcoin. And here is a great example. This is Litecoin, and this was supposed to be the silver of crypto. And as you can see, when compared to Bitcoin, it's a loser. If I was interested in limited supply, store of value crypto tokens, let me start by saying Bitcoin is the only one I would ever consider. Sure, you may see a big pump up and think you've missed your chance at a crypto lottery ticket, but these things almost always end up like the very real Geo Bowden coin I showed you all a few months ago here on the channel. They go to zero, and it's all driven by insiders, so I don't like stuff like this. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to Bitcoin, I have avoided the topic for a little while here on the YouTube channel, not because I've changed my opinion on it, but because some more emotional viewers react to it strangely in the comments section. And the truth of the matter is, I'm not interested in having a debate about Bitcoin in the comments section of my videos. And that's why I have mostly talked about it on Patreon, in case you were wondering why that is. And that includes, by the way, the buy signals that I gave my patrons when Bitcoin was below $30,000 in 2023. And I know that some of you watching this video right now did very well on that buy signal. Now, that doesn't mean I don't agree with some of the classic arguments against Bitcoin and for gold. And I personally think Peter Schiff makes a very compelling case against Bitcoin. And I think he's a very smart guy. I've had him here on the show. And this might be that one topic where we have a difference of opinion, but it doesn't mean that I have to disrespect him or that he would ever disrespect me because of that difference of opinion. And I think that there is no doubt, just to be very clear, that gold will forever have value. And I'm basing that on the thousands of years it has been used as money. And the same thing applies to silver. Now, can I say the same thing about Bitcoin, that it will always and forever have value in the same way gold and silver have and will continue according to my expectations? No, I can't say that. I'm not as convinced to Bitcoin as I am to gold and silver. But that doesn't mean I don't own Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin, and I own quite a good amount of it. And I think it's funny when the Bitcoin haters come to my channel and start to talk some jazz in the comments section, acting like I don't understand or haven't benefited from the price run up in Bitcoin. It couldn't be further from the truth, and I bet you I've got more Bitcoin than 99.99% of the people coming into the comments talking the jazz to me. Anyhow, I have spoken in the past about what I think the impact and embrace of governments and financial institutions would be on Bitcoin, going all the way back to 2021 here on the channel when Bitcoin was around $30 a pop. And I said that I expect Bitcoin to go up to $85,000. And you can go back to those older videos. They were some of my very first videos when I was still trying to kind of figure out what direction I wanted to take the channel in. And you can see in those videos that I say exactly that. Because ultimately, in an environment that is infinitely inflationary and in a world that is becoming more and more digital, I see a place in my portfolio for both gold and Bitcoin because they represent scarcity in a world where fiat money is anything but scarce. And some of you may think I'm wrong on this, but all you have to do is pull up a price chart of Bitcoin today to see that I've been right on this topic. Now, can it come down again with the stock market? Because I am anticipating this question in the comments section. Yes, Bitcoin can come back down with the stock market when it eventually corrects, as I anticipate it will. And what will I do then when Bitcoin crashes again, possibly, and goes down to maybe $40,000 a Bitcoin? Am I going to cry in the corner? Am I going to write a letter to Peter Schiff and say, hey, man, you were right all the time? No, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm most likely going to buy a little bit more. So to those of you who are fans of mine and fans of the channel, but not fans of Bitcoin, let me please just make a final statement on the topic. And let me please rewind back to 2021 to something I covered in one of my first videos when Bitcoin was about $43,000. What I said then was, even if you hate the concept of Bitcoin, it might make sense to secure yourself with a little Bitcoin insurance for a long-term hold, because you just never know. And I wasn't saying that I would go wild and enter it with all my money. What I was saying was that if I was at these different income brackets, the ones you can see here on the screen right now, these are the amounts of Bitcoin I'd secure for myself. And you can see it's not a lot. There was really a very modest amount. And I said that even as a skeptic, I would put that modest amount of money based on the different income brackets into Bitcoin, again, as an insurance policy. And what I want to say is that the dollar values of those levels have almost doubled since the first time I showed them. So as far as my approach to Bitcoin goes, I like to think I'm realistic about it. I see the possibilities of it in a digital future, and I own a good deal of it as a long-term insurance policy for that reason. But I'm not under any illusion that it could ever replace my physical gold and silver or even my land or my real estate positions, because it can't and it won't, at least as far as I'm concerned. But there is no law against having both of them, so I do. So with that said, everybody, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with people if you think what I am saying here is something that people you know need to hear. And one last reminder before I sign off, I want to thank very much Land of Land for sponsoring this video. I sincerely believe in the power of owning real estate and owning land. With the Federal Reserve potentially printing more money in 2025, Land, gold, and silver are things they cannot print, and I very much think those are things that people who are watching this channel who want to protect the value of their money should be considering as options. And if gold and silver is an option you're thinking of on top of the land, remember please to check out summitmetals.com to get great deals on gold and silver as well as 5-star service. So everyone, I'm wishing you a fantastic week ahead. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.